I expect there to be coaches who are hungry to learn and want to improve, right? Just like the players that you have in that kind of environment. I think I would be doing a disservice if I didn't put a professional development plan in place for those coaches. But I think deep down, everybody has a desire to for connection, for community. And then if you open that up, there is desire to learn from people that become close to, If we're backing ourselves to say we're developing coaches as well, we're developing players, but then every time a position opens up, we hire from outside, then either we're not doing it, period, or we're not doing it well. The piece around, certainly in New Zealand, but even in the States, the piece around taking care of the people, a lot of talk about the holistic development, about taking care of the players, about helping players understand the importance of nutrition, sleep, recovery, all these sort of things. When we so often ignore it with the coaches, it's like being an actor. You have to bring your best to those sessions. And if every day you're starting your sessions at 50%, 40%, the players can feel it as well.
Hello coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach interview. Should coaches share the same mindset as players towards improvement, development, and continually looking to get better? I think we'd all agree they should. However, what should that look like? How do we organize it? How do we formalize it? And then how do we get people around and galvanize it? We're joined today by someone who's doing just that. Joshua Neff is working as head of coaching at the professional level at Wellington Phoenix in New Zealand, who also compete in the Australian Professional League, experience at MLS level as well, and phenomenal insight not just towards improvement and self-development as coaching, but also how to communicate and facilitate that to other coaches in the organization, something that I think is going to be huge in the next 5 and 10 years. Before we start, please please subscribe so you don't miss any more of the content. And we've also announced today a new MSC webinar, set piece webinar with Michelle Aragona, March 28th, set piece webinar, live webinar. I'll put the link below for you. Michelle is the set piece analyst coach, first team level at Midtjylland in Denmark, one of the top teams in the world at set pieces and also incorporating data. And Michelle is going to share some of the secrets. Live webinar, March 28th, for free, absolutely free. I repeat, free. If you register, you get a free link as well, emailed to you. Thanks so much for the support. Here's Joshua. Enjoy. Joshua, thanks so much for joining me today on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Really excited, chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, we're going to talk today about your role, your journey, but first of all, we're going to go into director of coaching. The position, again, we've said it just before we start recording, it's a position in the US that there are so many directors of coaching, but I don't think we've really gone into what the role can be or what the role is, if it's supporting coaches, if it's development coaching, if it's just managing who's coaching who. I suppose the first question could be, how do you perceive the role?
My perception of the role essentially was, I'll come into a professional academy. I expect there to be coaches who are hungry to learn and want to improve, right? Just like the players that you have in that kind of environment, and in most environments, to be fair for the players. And yeah, I'm very happy because that's what I got. We have a lot of young coaches within the academy, which presents their own unique challenges. But the biggest thing they have is all of them have a desire to learn. So it allowed me to come in and not have to spend too much time trying to break barriers down, because everybody was kind of full on and what can we do better, and which is a really cool environment to come into. The interesting thing with the methodology is I came in and the academy itself had kind of been through some ups and downs and kind of just survived during COVID, and then came out of the survival state and then started to add teams and add in onto the female side. Which has been great, but there are probably a few steps that were missed. And one of those was during that time was basically there was no methodology within the academy. It was kind of every coach on their own island sort of thing, doing whatever they thought was appropriate. So what I want to be really conscious of when I came in, though, was that yes, we needed to develop a developmental method, not a game model, but developmental model for us. However, it couldn't be just mine. I think we discussed that a little bit over email. There was a danger of this being a conversation that could have gone a million different directions and us never really solving anything. what was really important to me, especially being cognizant of being, the American and not being too American. And, as the stereotypical of just coming in and telling them how they should do it, especially with me having so little context of the cultural influences here, on the game and on the people, even when I first came in. And having not been in the academy, we had a number of coaches that, had been in the academy for a little while. And while they were operating in their own silos a little bit with their teams, there are a lot of similarities and things that they found important and things that they found important for the players. And so what was really important was for me we had like daily meetings in that first preseason. When I first came in, we had about 4 or 5 weeks before players came in, and we just put our heads down and got to work. And I led the meetings, but the coaching staff did a lot of the talking and shared with me what they thought was really important. And then basically I just filled in gaps to say, like, or maybe, this is how you phrase it, but maybe there's a different way to phrase it that's a bit more encompassing, or we cover a bit more and make sure we're really taking care of this area of the game. And then when there were gaps, I would basically present my ideas where I thought there were gaps and say, I think we're missing this important piece of the game. Let me present it to you and explain it to you the way that I understand it. And then there were a couple of times where they would go, oh yeah, actually we do have something like that. We haven't mentioned it yet. I say, okay, what's your language behind it? And then there were times where they went, wow, that we had never really kind of considered it that way. And we think the language that you have is perfect and really good. So let's use that. And it's been a year. I've been here for over a year now, and we're still, as I think you probably should be doing, because the game constantly changes. We're updating, we're reviewing, going back and going, okay, we had this, but maybe that wasn't quite right with our group, with our players, or we didn't have the wording so that the language we use with the players isn't quite connecting as well as we'd like to. How can we go back into doing that? And then once we had the developmental model, we then went into the pedagogy and said, okay, how are we going to teach these things? And let's all be aligned there, because what's really important is we have a lot of movement between groups, on every week, every match day. We wanted the players to be able to understand the messages that we were delivering with the language and the different pieces of the game, but we also wanted them to understand what was going to happen a little bit in the training and how we were going to teach it. And obviously, we all have different personalities, so the coaches aren't robots by any means. They have a lot of flexibility within it, but it gave a really good structure for coaches that were all kind of doing their own thing. And then I think it gave good structure to our players as well. And we've seen quite a bit of I would say quite a bit of development within the academy in just this past year.
Brilliant. Oh, what a start. The thing you said there about the coaches being open to growth and development, I wonder if we're going through this, don't know if it's a phase or if it's just an evolution of coaches. You said like the players, but I think maybe because coaches are just, again, getting more information and looking to progress their understanding of the game, or whether coaches are just a little bit more career driven today as what they were 10 years ago. I'm not sure, but do you think today there's a demand or a need or a requirement at a club that coaches actually have a development plan, that they're looking at being specific on how they want to get better and kind of, you mentioned there, and we'll talk about that freedom piece, but also having that, that's a way of growth as well. Does that have to be there these days?
I think so. I mean, for my role, I absolutely think so. I think I would be doing a disservice if I didn't put a professional development plan in place for those coaches. I think for me, it would be just a bit ignorant of not talking to them about what their desires are. Like I said, we have quite young coaches, and they have plans and dreams and aspirations that they want to achieve. Realistically, like, it's the same thing I say to my players. It's not my goal for them to be a pro. I ask, what is your goal with the game? Realistically, in a professional academy, everybody says I want to be a pro, which we know numbers wise isn't gonna happen. But okay, if that's what you tell me your goal is, then what can I do to walk alongside you and help you get there? And it's the same thing that I'm doing with the coaches here. If you tell me this is the aspiration, and this is what you want to do, how can I help? What can I help? And what blind spots can I help? Point out. What things are you really good at that I can help champion? And help to become even better, and what are practical steps, so every coach has a has a PDP plan, just like our players all have like IDP, and we call them player passport plans. And I meet with the coaches. We have scheduled to meet every week. Obviously some things, things can come up. I would say we probably end up meeting every other week. It's a bit more realistic of when we actually get together. But yeah, we review those things. We talk about sessions. Sometimes I'm just there to listen, and for them to be able to talk about their frustrations about the player, the team, a match. But always the guide, I guess, for me is what do you want? How can I help? Make sure it aligns with what the club needs from you right now. Obviously, we can't be like way off base, but yeah, I mean, that's get good people in and then point them in the right direction and then walk alongside them, I think, is the goal.
Right. There's going to be at least 50 coaches listening to this driving going, oh, yeah, that's great. But hey, if you had my bunch of coaches, they don't want to show up at my coach development meeting last night. And so let's just say you've walked into something where that culture isn't there in terms of embracing self-development. Let's say you've got to change that culture in the environment. What advice would you have for coaches that are in the process of doing that or starting it?
That's a really good question. I think one of the first things I did was I had some ideas of things that I thought we could do together as a group, but similar to working together on the developmental methodology, it was what do you guys want? So we had a discussion as a group. We also took it outside of the meeting room, and I said, here's a form. So it's anonymous. So if you feel uncomfortable for some reason because we don't know each other very well, send ideas of things that you're like, I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know this, or that I want to learn this, or I don't want to say it in front of the group, or whatever. So it's anonymous. Say, this is what I think I need to work on. This is what I would like to have discussions about. And the great thing is when you get together a bunch of coaches who even if they're hesitant at first, start to hear about other people's experiences and their strengths and weaknesses. If you can get them to be open, then all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, actually, I have an idea for that. And I have to do less. Once every 3 weeks, we have a meeting where we just talk about the small wins that we've had. And then we also have like an appreciation like moment where basically you don't have to, but pretty routinely it does happen where I appreciate Coach so-and-so for helping clean up gear the other night, sticking around. Like those little things just start to open up doors that create bigger conversations in the office and outside the office, where when the people get to know each other better, they're more willing to get feedback and give feedback, which is what we see quite a bit. So like those small wins things, the first time we did it, I was a little nervous to see how it would go. I was still relatively new. I was still relatively new, and some of them have been around for a while. Some of our coaches were new. And our most senior coach, our reserve team head coach, who played for the first team and coaches the U20s, the national team here as well, went first. And then it was like nobody else was afraid to go, because he had gone first. And then he was giving fantastic, feedback to their coaches as well. And I got to sit back and kind of go like, you know what? Hey, what do I have? I don't need to add anything. Everybody's giving feedback here that is helping each other grow. So, yeah, I know that you're going to have some stubborn coaches sometimes, for sure. I've probably been there at some point in time in my career as well, and didn't want to listen to somebody else. But I think deep down, everybody has a desire for connection, for community. And then if you open that up, there is desire to learn from people that become close to,
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone does deep down. There's a desire in everyone to get better, but that is often offset by something that, I mean, I don't think you're giving yourself credit there for how difficult it is for even to say, oh, I didn't have to do anything. I just sat back. But that in itself is making sure, like, how much do you come into a role, or how much do people come into a role and say, I've got to project intelligence, efficiency, on all that. So like, I think what you're communicating, what I'm hearing is like there's an element of, it's really collaborative, and you're trying to
manipulate the leaders involved, and then the feedback. There's a complex process going on there. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think there's one of my favorite books actually is Bruce Lee's daughter Shanley wrote a book all about like his philosophy and everything, and in the book it's his philosophy, but she talks about choiceless awareness, and it's basically the ability to go into a situation and not have a choice already kind of made up in your mind, but be aware of what's happening. And it's more or less, I guess it's a little more complicated way of saying be present, there's a little more to it, but I think it's again, like there's a lot of expertise, when I've been in any of these clubs, like maybe this is the right place at the right time for me as well. There's an element of that. Like maybe when I was a bit younger, there would have been an element of I got to prove myself, and now I'm a bit older, and I guess my priorities in life, maybe including in the game, have changed a little bit, and it allows me to be more choicelessly aware, I guess, in those moments, and be really excited to listen to other people like share their ideas, and to just be there when I need to be called on, but not have to be the biggest voice in the room all the time.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. Just a reminder that if you have an interest in set piece coaching and set piece analysis, we have a special event coming up, a free event coming up on March 28th. We'll be joined by Michel Aragona. He is the full-time first team set piece analyst at Midtjylland in Denmark, a famous club for their innovation, a famous club for their set piece work and their approach to data. Michel's going to teach us the secrets to set piece coaching on March 28th. He's also got a really, really interesting story. He was previously at Sampdoria with Andrea Pirlo. He's a young coach who is really passionate about set pieces, really passionate about processes, and he is coming on for free. So I'll put the link below, modernsoccercoach.com, March 28th. If you missed the live event, as always with our webinars, within 24 hours, we will email you a replay link that you can watch with no expiration date. It's always there. Please make sure you subscribe March 28th so you get the live event or you get the replay version. The only thing we ask in return for this one is a like, is a subscribe, is to tell your coaching community about the work of Modern Soccer Coach. Spread the word, help us get the word out of Modern Soccer Coach. Thank you so much for your support. Back to Joshua.
Another change, and I can echo yours. I don't know whether it's just me or whether I'm feeling it, they're seeing it, but I think the piece that coaches are now starting to want that freedom in their growth and wanting more autonomy in the environment. And I go back to maybe 10 years ago where the director of coaching put the PDF out at the start of the year, 80 pages. Nobody read it, but nobody cared. And this time it seems like people that could actually cost you big time if you did that, to be labeled as someone that's just going to chuck. So yeah. I go back and forth with this all the time, Josh, and I really want to get your thoughts on how do you give people the freedom and flexibility in the growth, but still go back to, you said they're a professional club with a standard and a vision. How do you balance those two?
Yeah, I think there's the balance is the realities of what is needed, right, to achieve what they want to achieve. There is that reality. It's the same thing with players as well. Like there is a reality of our game. Not everybody can be a pro, and there are certain qualities you have to have, realistically speaking, nowadays to be a pro, right? And it's the same thing for a coach. We talk about our youngest players just came back. Their first training session would have been yesterday. On Monday, we had like the player parent orientation. We talk and coaches present on different areas during that. We talk about like their ability to present. Like that's an important piece. You have, if you want to continue your progression as a coach. I know that's not something most people would like touch on first, right? But you're going to have to go into interviews and you're going to have to present why you're the best option. You're going to have to be good in front of people. You're going to have to be able to speak with the right tone, be able to capture people's attention. And that is coaching as well, right? That then translates into halftime. How do you capture your players' attention in halftime? What do you need to get across? What piece of collaboration is there? Yeah. So there's just basically it's what they want And then sometimes that is my job to go, but here's the reality. You want to be in the pro game. Perception is important. Same again, I tell my players the same thing because some of them don't realize it, but like how you carry yourself. The first team coach comes to watch. I can tell him that or her that you're the best player, but if they see 15 minutes and the attitude's poor, the effort's poor, you don't look professional, like that may be the 15 minutes you get. And I think it's the same thing in the professional world. I can't speak. I've worked in soccer or football for so long now. I can't speak to other careers too well, but it is like perception does matter, and everybody likes somebody who works hard, who's willing to put in time, who cares about other people. So it's just the matching of what are their goals and aspirations as to what's the reality of what they need. I want to be, coaching at X level. Okay. The league says you must have a pro license to do it. So then we have to do these steps in order to get you to the pro license. And we got to make sure you do well on the pro license. So we can't just go and do whatever learning we want to do during this stage. We have to do what the organization says you must do in order to be at that level if that's what you really want. And then it's a bit of a choice sometimes, isn't it? I mean, I've had coaches and met people before that have gone, actually, when you start to stack up and see what it would really take, like, actually, I'm not sure that's where I want to really end up, because that's not for me. And that's fine too.
No, it's commendable when someone says that, because I mean they've thought of it. Here's another one to throw at you. Just say you have a U10, U12 coach who's in their PDP says, listen, first team manager, I want to be a first team manager. And Chris Ramsey, you're starting to laugh there. Chris Ramsey, we had him on about 6 months ago, and he was like, he called them boy racers, people that want to get from A to B without kind of doing the work or as quick as possible. And I've seen and I've talked to people who, academy directors that have said, listen, that's X, you do not hire that person. But I've also spoke to people who have said, okay, that's their goal. We will help them gain the experiences to do that there for the next 5 years. Where do you sit on that there type of profile?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of I mean, it's a little bit off topic, I guess, but a lot of times where I think people don't want to hire that coach from the long-term standpoint is because of this belief. I think it's a great idea, but it's so rarely executed. Of you want people who really want to be with those younger players, coaching those younger players, focus on these younger players. That's the thing I want to do long term. A lot of people will say we want our best coaches with those younger. I mean, but that is so hard to actually do, right? There's just so few of, in my experience, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's so few of those people who are just so motivated, and that's what they do. They get to that U10, U11, U12, and like, yes, this is really what I want to do long term. I love this. I don't want to do anything more. So I think that's part of it, and I think that's, again, I talk about perception and realities, and like there's just not that many of those coaches around in my experience that are satisfied, I would say, to stay with that group for their career. So that's a part of it. So I think for me, again, I would be very what's the word? I would be lying to myself and lying to other people if I went when I was also their age and also coaching those age groups. If I didn't have desires to do more, and I have people in my coaching career, mentors, and that have looked after me, and not once did one of them go like, no, you can't do more. You shouldn't do more. Everybody's been so encouraging to me. So for me, I think that's the route to take. Like if I have someone like that, I want to be encouraging to them. I want to help them. And then one of my core tenets is like, is be honest all the time. I joke, it didn't always serve me super well with my wife initially. But now she really appreciates it. So it took a little while. I didn't back down from it. And now she appreciates that I am always honest with her. I do the same thing with coaches and with players. And I think, again, ultimately, like it may be a little off-putting at first, but then they realize like, actually, it's because I really care about you. And because I want to say like, okay, you know what, right now, in honesty, the best spot for you is this U11 team and putting all of your focus and development here because you're not ready. But that doesn't mean you can't be. And then again, my job is to go like, and how can we help you be ready for what the next step is that you want to take to get to, your end goal. And end goals change as well. I mean, mine has. So.
Brilliant answer. I don't like this question, but I want to put a bit of context. I think this role, again, in our chats, this role probably needs to be amplified in terms of the benefits it can have to coaches in a club, and if it's done right and committed to all around, like holistically, the same way we say developing players, developing coaches, I think then it's a massive game changer. There's so much opportunity for growth in our North American culture. But I think in order to do that, we have to sing what the advantages are of it. And I think the way I don't like the question is because I don't think you should have to measure everything, especially in a culture. But what are some ways that you would say that prove that the tide is turning in a culture where you have this director of coaching that is putting in the methodology, involving people, getting everyone buying into growth? What are some things that you could point to and say, listen, that shows we're on the right track?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is coach retainment and coach growth within our own club. A position opens up, that's who we look at first. Because if we're backing ourselves to say we're developing coaches as well, we're developing players, but then every time a position opens up, we hire from outside, then either we're not doing it, period, or we're not doing it well. And we have to go back and look at what's going on. Or we have to challenge leadership sometimes to say, like, we're actually doing what you guys are asked to do, and you need to look a little bit closer at what we have in-house. The coach retainment one, for me, I think the piece around, certainly in New Zealand, but even in the States, the piece around taking care of the people, you mentioned it, like we more over the last 10 years, maybe less, there's been a big shift towards, a lot of talk about the holistic development, about taking care of the players, about helping players understand the importance of nutrition, sleep, recovery, all these sort of things. Well, we so often ignore it with the coaches. That's been my own experience. No one's ever talked to me about the importance of my own recovery sort of thing as a coach. Like there's plenty of other books and podcasts talk about that sort of stuff from a lifestyle standpoint, but it's so rarely addressed as a coach. And in one of my previous jobs during COVID, we grew an academy from 2 teams to 5 teams during a hiring freeze. So the same amount of staff that was taking care of 2 teams had to take care of 5 teams. And then the first team staff was let go. And so half of that staff that was taking care of the 5 teams moved into the first team space on an interim basis, which essentially left me and 2 other people to take care of 5 teams. And yeah, you as a coach, you're always like, yeah, I can do it. I got it. I'll take care of it. But it was so much. And I can remember always the intersection before the training facility. I can remember always arriving at the intersection and starting to feel anxious about the stuff, knowing that there's no way I could accomplish everything that needed to be accomplished on that day heading into work, which is a very daunting feeling to know before you start the day that there's no way at the end of the day you'll be anywhere near where you want to be. And so I've used that experience and I was able to work through it. And I'm very blessed to have, like I said before, coaching mentors, but I also have a psychologist that works in the game that I work with as well to help me kind of understand how to deal with that better and come through it and understand what was leading up to it and all the factors, because they weren't just always the circumstances. They were also things that I needed to be better with. And so I've taken those things and really through that lens I'm able to look at our staff to go, what's really important to you in this moment? Because maybe it's not what's on the field. Maybe it's your living situation is awful. We had a coach like that, that my main concern on main conversations with her became, how do we get you in a better place to live? So that when you go home, you can feel like you can relax and you can recharge so that the next day when you come in, we get the best version of you that we possibly can. So I think because of that care of that piece of it, we retain all of our coaches from last year with a lot of them had brand new contracts that were up, and we had conversations around that. They came to me and said, are you staying? I said, yes, of course I'm staying. Okay. That was really important piece for me to know whether I stay or not, because we never had support like this before. Because everything else gets going on and there's not that role essentially. And the academy director has so many other things to do, and people just don't know about people a lot of times, especially when you're siloed off and having to coach in their own kind of world and that sort of stuff. So really, I know it's a long answer to what was probably could have been a two-sentence answer to your question, but yeah, it's the people, and taking care of the people first is just so important. And then if you do that, the amount of like headway and respect you get to give them feedback on the actual coaching piece, it's just so much quicker. Like what you can get into, and I have one coach who I can give just direct feedback. Ask me a question. We don't have to do like any sort of guide discovery, whatever. He's like, I just want you to tell me. Okay, great. Like, but we can get there because there's no fear of like, I'm judging him or I'm going to tell him he's not good enough, because he knows that regardless of the job that I'm looking after him, take care of him and want what's best for him. So therefore no matter how I tell him like, listen, that was actually really bad. And we have to fix a lot of that. No problem. Like, he's great. Good. I'm here for it, and that's the feedback that you want your coaches to kind of be willing to look at, not just take, but desire,
I think that piece on coach support is so important, and I think again it's got massive gains, because I don't think we're even scratching the surface. This mental health awareness, how many years have we been saying it's good to talk? Like 10 years, and we're still doing that. We're still saying, listen, there's such and such struggling. It's good to talk, and then we all go and do whatever we do. I think to really get into like our workforce, so to speak, of coaches is overworked. So the external doesn't help them, but the internal as well is like managing diet. How many cans of Red Bull do you see on a sideline on a Saturday afternoon? Way too many. You look at scrolling, how many people are active trolls on Twitter trolling pro teams. You're like, guys, do yourself a favor. And I think if someone go in, and like I look at that, and if someone went in and just changed 2 or 3 harmful, disruptive behaviors there, you'd be in a way better spot.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, we talk about like if the stuff outside of the office is right, the stuff inside the office and on the pitch will probably be right. So basically we can't ignore it. It's not, I can't go in and tell them how they have to live their life, but obviously, and like I said, we have a number of young coaches who are, life looks very different to me. I have a wife and 3 kids, and they're single, and they have, you could argue they have more time, but I've never, even when I was younger, I never liked when an older coach would be like, oh yeah, but like your life's not nearly as stressful or something like that because you don't have kids at home. Maybe there's an element of that, but also I have my own things. So I've tried to take that as well and go like, yes, I have a lot going on. There's no doubt. I have 3 kids and they're always running around and they're young, and I want to spend time with them. But that's not to say that whatever I have going on isn't as important as the 26-year-old coach that I have, especially if I don't know what he has going on. I have no idea, and he's not willing to talk to me about it. So
let's say you're hiring a coach. Interviewing process, we've talked about the coach that's ambitious and career driven, but if you're bringing a coach into your environment tomorrow, what are some things how are you going through that process? What are some things you're looking for?
They have to be collaborative. They have to be willing to be open and have their ideas challenged, but also be willing to present their ideas. I think we have a really good environment of not shutting anybody down, but you have to be willing to speak up a little bit. You have to be willing to say what you think, and we'll support that. But the collaboration piece is so important because ultimately even though the academy has been around a while, I still think we're in this space where we're continuing to develop who we are. So bringing in like somebody from the outside, but I think regardless of where I would be at, I think that would be so important. It is relevant to where we're currently at, but I think regardless of anywhere, that would be really important. We definitely look at the ability to be truthful, open, not just with players, but with the staff and those sort of things as well. I think one of the disarming things about us being pretty open about I want to help you, the club, we want to help you achieve your goals, is that we've reduced the amount of things that happen behind the scenes. So that would be, but it's also still really important. Like, we don't want someone to come in who's going to talk behind people's back. And because we talk about because we give so many opportunities to be honest and to give feedback, then we have to do them in those moments. And because, to be fair, we have had so little of it because we've been able to create an environment that is open to be able to share with what's going on consistently. So I think a lot of times those things fester when someone has to keep them to themselves, and then they find one person to back them up, essentially. And when you can put stuff in the open consistently, that doesn't happen. But that's a really important thing. That's basically collaboration. Be open and honest with yourself, but with us. It's okay to give feedback, even to myself. Go like, I don't think that you should have done that to me. It's just no problem. I hold no illusions that I have, perfect days or anything like that. Like, we make mistakes, and I have a desire to get better as well. So if no one's calling me out, then that's a problem. And then obviously on the pitch stuff, like on the pitch is still really important. We're definitely not ignoring it. The ability to command a session for the players to believe that you're invested in them, but also invested in the session. I think it's another piece why it's so important to take care of yourself outside of the workspace, because like every session, we have our own pedagogy and everyone's a little bit different on stuff, but regardless of how much you sit back and let a game run or etc., like, it's like being an actor. You have to bring your best to those sessions. And if every day you're starting your sessions at 50%, 40%, the players can feel it as well. So we want people that are able to understand how to take care of themselves and manage their energy, so they're able to give it to the players when it's needed. Our players will really feed off that, I think, or anyone's players feed off that. You can see a session that feels dull and uninspired, and not always, obviously. We all have bad sessions, but a lot of times it comes from a coach who is feeling uninspired as well. And then I'd say that the last piece is just coaches that are, to follow that up, like coaches that are inspired to learn. Our staff so often is coming up with new things and new questions and new ideas that I wouldn't have ever thought about, and just bringing them up in the office to everybody, which is such a cool space to be in. To have a staff that's not afraid to be to present their ideas, because they're not afraid to be ridiculed, essentially. Doesn't mean we'll do everything, but you have the voice to be able to say it. And we have so many different personalities. Our youngest coach on the female side is she comes up with the most creative story ideas to kind of build her team through a story of the season, and come up with halftime talk, pregame talks and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's not necessarily going to be my thing, but for me, it's hers. So I want to go alongside of her and be cool. And then I'm going to check in. Oh, how did it go? Not as good as I thought. Okay, well then let's take a look and see what could be better. And then but it's not just me, it's the other coach sitting next to her as well, might have an idea. So for us to have that environment is really important. We wouldn't want to bring a coach in who wants to work in their own silo, who doesn't want to be collaborative, who doesn't want to be honest, who isn't seeking feedback and isn't seeking to learn.
Here's the question on that then. So let's say you have a coach who is deficient in 1, 2, or 3 of those areas that are key areas. Can coach education fix that? Can anything fix that?
Yes. I'm a believer that you can improve every area of your life. I do think we do have, there is the reality of we are at a certain level. We're the only professional academy in New Zealand. and I've worked in 3 MLS clubs as well. And there's a reality of you have to be really good, right? They don't hire anybody. Expectations are high. There's a lot of money invested. Like those are the realities, and I think it's okay to discuss and talk about those realities. Like, hey, this is somebody else's money, putting a lot of money into these players. We have to be good. Like, we have to be really good. I think as long as the coach is open to what their blind spot is, and to being able to take the feedback on it and to say, yes, I want to work on that, then there can be progress made. And it's situational, dependent on the amount of time maybe you would give that person. When a coach and a player doesn't want to have their blind spot revealed and refuses to accept it, it's when you have to go, okay, well then this isn't the environment for you, because we need growth here. And that's when hard decisions, have to be made. But luckily, at the moment, I don't have any coaches like that. So I'm very, very blessed in that matter. But as all of these coaches listening have surely worked with a player like that before. The one player that keeps you up at night, kind of thing, that you like, I just wish he or she would recognize this. I've told him, we've talked about it. It's really the players that, for me at least, in my experience, really the players that accept the feedback, that constantly trying to work, those sort of things that keep me up at night. It's the players that I go, man, that I have the what ifs about. Like, what if I could just get through to this player? If they could just see it, if I could just help them understand what's going to hold them back long term, or what's holding them back right now. And it would be the same with coaches. It's the same with coaches. It's a people thing. It's a behavior thing, right? That's what coaching is, and leading is changing, adapting, helping people change behaviors. Obviously, there's so many different behaviors in the game from a player standpoint that within those 90 minutes or however long your match is, and with people, it's the same thing. So you look for those breakthroughs, and for people to be willing to have their blind spots called out, which is sometimes, not a great feeling, is it?
I'll talk about the transition, but before I do, the US MLS academies, of course, everyone will have 100 complaints about the landscape over here in the youth game. But I've seen massive growth within that investment, professionalism of coaches, academies. There's so many good things. Being in the middle of that, what have you seen that MLS academies can kind of hold their head up high about what they're doing at the minute?
MLS academies have come so far. I think I did. It's been a couple of years now, but I did the EFCL course that's in the MLS partners with the French Federation. I did it during COVID, so it's supposed to be like a roughly 13-month course, and it was basically 3 years for my cohort. And it wasn't like we were doing nothing during that time. The instructors had us pretty consistently meeting over video chats and doing assignments and doing that sort of thing. But I think that commitment, I'm not sure what they thought it would be when they did the first iteration of it, but the commitment to consistently having the coaches develop. I mean, it's an expensive process the clubs are putting their money behind to help the coaches develop. I won't say that every part of it was I loved, but I love that the process, the way it ended, the way we all came out of it. I think he's also been an interesting way, maybe unintentional, maybe intentional, that course in itself has connected so many coaches across the country, that if I have a player who, let's just say tomorrow a player says I have to move here from New Zealand and we're relocating in San Jose, I can call somebody in San Jose and say, hey, listen, I've got a player coming in. Can you take a look at him and see if he's the right fit for your academy? And I could do that across the country kind of now, and not just me, so many MLS coaches could do that. So the network has become really strong, and then the connection between all those coaches becomes really strong. The ability to give feedback, challenge each other becomes really, really strong. The money invested obviously is a huge piece of it, and it helps when you have head coach and assistant coaches on the teams, when you have people who are looking after so many details. I remember when I first arrived in Cincinnati, it was the first time we had an equipment manager, a kit man, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, just the amount of things that in that moment, you're like, oh, I don't have to do that and this and this. Like, it's sometimes those little things that then allow you more time to spend on the players. And so that's going to help that investment, where people, I think, sometimes might look down on the money side of the MLS and those sort of things, but those investment help the development of players. There's no doubt. And yeah, certainly through events like the GA Cup and those sort of things, like the quality has definitely gone up around the country, and it's boosted, I would say, the levels even below the MLS, in my opinion. Like, the league is good, the MLS Next League is good, but ECNL and so on, like, those leagues are doing well. And I think the overall quality of the game in the US has come a long way, and I think coaches are better at identifying players. I think it still happens, but I think fewer players fall through the cracks now, and the more and more the quality of coaches grow across the country, the less that will happen as well, I think.
Brilliant. All right, last one for you. The transition over to New Zealand and obviously competing in the Australian League as well. Give us an oversight of what that league looks like and what hit the question, not what the standard is, but what the differences are in the type of football.
It's very interesting for us. As I mentioned, that the only professional academy in the country. There's 2 professional teams now here. The Wellington Phoenix, we're the only one for a while, and now Auckland has a franchise that just started this year. And then we both of us compete at the first team levels in the Australian A-League. So both our women's side and our men's side compete in that league and travel quite a bit. Not too dissimilar, I guess, than teams in the States have to travel and fly quite a bit. In the academy space, we are pretty local, more or less local, like to New Zealand. There are some things that I think will be coming soon that will change some of that, but that I'm really excited about. But at the moment, yeah, we compete locally. But because if we do our job correctly, which we're getting there, if we essentially accrue the best talent in New Zealand, which means we can't compete like for like in age group stuff. So that's an area that I think it's missing a bit for us, and we're really working positively to find some solutions outside the country. We'll be taking more teams to Australia more often in order to compete against other A-League academies over there, and other international events, so that we can get some like for like comparisons on age group. Because right now, our reserve team plays in the top division across New Zealand, so against men of all different ages, and we cap our ages basically at, like, it's going to change, but roughly 21. We're our second team. Our third team, that our like 19s, 18s group, plays men's football as well. And just in order to compete, it's not from a standard standpoint. Realistically speaking, we're almost always the better of the footballing teams on the pitch, but at least from a physical standpoint, it creates problems for us: bigger, faster, stronger, playing against men. Maturity aspect, that was a big learning thing for me last year to watch our boys play against men and realize how many things that from a maturation standpoint they couldn't handle, just like some of the dark arts of the game and those sort of things that really, really get underneath their skin very easily. So I think from that standpoint, from those standpoints, we create is the wrong word. We help develop players to be more ready for elements of the pro game younger. And that's why we see there's quite a few of our academy players in the first team right now, because from a physical standpoint, they learn how to manage it really young. We have 2010s this year that we're playing against men in order to find the right challenge point for them, which means by the time in 2-3 years, they'll have 2-3 years of playing against men. So if we've done the other pieces right, and if they've done their pieces right and the quality is there, when they step into an A-League game, yeah, of course, the quality is going to be better than what they're playing against, or maybe a little bit faster and stuff, but it's not that much. Like, the players aren't really that much stronger, not really that much faster. The game is faster, but they're ready for those things. The element that we're missing a bit is because we don't play like for likes, we don't get pressed a whole lot. So because we play against adults on the men's side, on the male side, and yeah, for 90 minutes, if they pressed us, it wouldn't be a good idea for them, and they want to win because there's promotion relegation, not for us, but for all those clubs throughout New Zealand. So they want to win. So the best tactic for them is usually, I'm being general, but usually is to sit in and defend deeper and have a couple of guys who are really physical up top, causes problems on the counterattack. And on the female side, we have the female side spends basically half the year playing against boys competition. And then the last half of the year goes closer to like for like and plays in some national female competitions. So yeah, it's just different. It's just different. We don't have the breadth of numerous teams to play against. So we constantly have to kind of create our own competition calendar every year to go, what's best during this time? How can we get, like, we know this is what we're missing. So where can we go to get games where someone's going to press us, get games where we can play against the same age group to give us a barometer of where we're at. But it creates a unique, like, good development thing for us too, where like I said, they're ready to play against men when they're boys still, like they figure it out. So that learning curve is taken care of a little bit younger and just out of necessity for us.
Brilliant. Well, hey, we're going to be following now. Now we know where you are and what's going on. We'll have to get you up for an update. But this has been amazing. I've really enjoyed it, Josh. I wish I had it done it earlier. It's a brilliant topic, and you've been amazing at it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. I really enjoy talking about this stuff, to be honest. And it's been a real blessing coming here and just getting time to spend with coaches. I enjoy coaching the team that I work with, and it's a good group of kids. But I've really enjoyed getting to work with the coaches. So anything I can share in that standpoint, I'm always excited to.
Quality. We'll do it again. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Cheers, Josh. Top class.